All right, welcome everybody. We are live. Welcome to In the Paint Altitude Sports Radio 92.5. I'm your host, Dan Tanner. Bad loss for the Denver Nuggets here at Ball Arena. I'm trying out a new spot here in Ball Arena, so I apologize if it's a little bright in the background, but we'll make it work as the Denver Nuggets fall to the New York Knicks 145 to 118 is your final here at Ball Arena tonight. I was sitting with DMAC during the game, and at the end I said, DMAC, what's your biggest takeaway from tonight's loss? And he said, Dan, there is no takeaways in a game like this. And, I was thinking about that for a while. Like, what is the biggest takeaway? And the only thing I could really come up with, at least for tonight, is the Nuggets are now 5-4 at home. And Michael Malone, in his pregame press conference, said that he actually talked to the team this morning about, at that point, being 5-3 at home. And the discussion was, we need to fix that. We need to get that rolling along and really start protecting our home court. Well, the scoreboard indicates behind me that was obviously not the case tonight. The Nuggets got absolutely obliterated by the New York Knicks tonight. OG Anunoby had 40 points on 16 of 23 shooting from the field. Karl-Anthony Towns, he is no longer with the Timberwolves offseason trade. He goes to New York. He was really good tonight. I mean, he shot 12 of 15, 30 points. So really, my biggest takeaway from tonight's game is the Nuggets continuing to struggle here in the Mile High City, which is a sight that a lot of Nuggets fans are not accustomed to seeing over the last decade or so, because this team and this organization has been so dominant in this arena that it is pretty wild and weird to see this team struggle so mightily at home. I saw Vic Lombardi tweet out earlier that the Nuggets have 4 losses already at home, and we're still in the month of November. The Nuggets didn't have their 4th home loss until the All-Star break last season. So that is obviously something that's going to be a point of emphasis moving forward with head coach Michael Malone. I just got out of his post-game press conference, and as you would expect, Coach Malone was very testy. He was not happy with that performance, and I don't blame him. Now, he was questioning the effort, the toughness, pretty much everything. And the first question asked to Malone in his post-game presser was, do you just throw this in the trash and move on? And it's really interesting because the reason I wanted to bring that up is the Avs got spanked around tonight too. They lost 8-2 in Tampa, so both local teams just got obliterated tonight. But the reason I wanted to bring up Coach Malone being asked about, like, is this sort of a game you throw into the trash and just say, hey, it is what it is and move on? Well, Jared Bednar was asked about that in his post-game press conference after the Avs 8-2 loss to Tampa tonight. And he essentially said, yes, like, we're just going to move on. It is what it is, not much to look at here, and we'll get them next time. Coach Malone had a very different answer in his post-game press conference. He was like, no, we're not going to throw this one away. You almost give up 150 points on your home floor. You don't throw that away. You need to dissect that, figure out what happened. So very interesting dichotomy there between the two head coaches that reside here in Ball Arena. But understandably, Michael Malone was not happy with the performance tonight. The Nuggets defense was absolutely non-existent in this game throughout. I mean, they were every single quarter, the Knicks were on fire, what it seemed like. And I will say the Nuggets defense was awful, but I will give New York credit. They played their asses off tonight. I mean, there's no question about that. They had a bad loss in Utah a couple of nights ago, and it really looked like they were coming into Denver to make a statement. So, I mean, the Nuggets give up 36 points in the first quarter, 40 points in the second, 37 in the third, and 32 in the fourth. In fact, the Nuggets didn't win a single quarter in this basketball game tonight. Nikola Jokic and the majority of the starters didn't even play in the fourth quarter. So, it's just one of those games. I mean, Joker finished with 22 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists in 32 minutes. And like I said, he didn't play in the fourth quarter. and he shouldn't have. I mean, Malone made the right decision there, not playing the majority of the starters in that fourth quarter. Again, it's something we've talked about this season when it comes to Michael Porter Jr. 0 points in the first quarter. He had 15 in the second. Like, he was on fire in that second quarter, but then he had 3 the rest of the game. So, again, it's the same issues that are popping up for the Denver Nuggets. They are struggling with consistency, especially Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. Now, Jamal, I thought, comparatively to his season so far, actually had a pretty decent game tonight. He started off the game really hot from the field. In fact, he had 7 points really early on in this game. I thought he was very aggressive. You could tell that Jamal was trying to get his game going early on, which is what I would like to see out of Jamal Murray, and he did. But again, the consistency from quarter to quarter is just not there for the Nuggets. And the biggest concern right now for me with this team is obviously their defense. The starters didn't play well defensively tonight. The bench unit was even worse defensively tonight. So for having a defensive-minded head coach like Michael Malone, you've got to wonder how much this is eating at him. And Calvin Booth, watching how bad this team has been so far on the defensive end, you've got to start wondering if they're going to start looking at options as far as how to improve the defense, whether that's bringing somebody up from the G League, whether it's giving guys off the bench more run. We've seen Trey Alexander now get three games in a row. Trey Alexander has gotten first quarter minutes. So they are trying to switch things up. I mean, the second quarter, to that second unit that starts the second quarter, they're switching it up again. They switched it up tonight. It was DeAndre Jordan again, no Dario Saric again tonight. But to start that second quarter, it was DJ, Russell Westbrook, Christian Brown, Julian Strawther, and Michael Porter Jr. So that's a different lineup than we have seen over the early portion of this season. So the coaching staff is trying to mix and match the lineups and try to find something that is working for that second unit specifically. But let's be honest, nothing was working tonight on either end of the floor for the Nuggets. The only really bright spot for me tonight for the Nuggets was Russell Westbrook. He was fantastic. And I will give Russell Westbrook a hell of a lot of credit. He was playing his ass off in that fourth quarter. I mean, he really, like, the crowd was not super into it here in that fourth quarter, but Russ got it going and got the crowd back into this thing. All right, our guy KJ is here. I'll add him to the show. Get KJ loaded up there.
What's up, man?
But Russ was fantastic in that fourth quarter. I know the game was all but over, but the intensity level that Russell Westbrook showed tonight, there's no quitting that dude. And he was talking to his guys. He was talking to his teammates. He was talking trash to the Knicks throughout this game. Like, there is no quit in that guy. And that was something that I really took away from tonight's game that was fantastic. But the problem is, and Coach Malone addressed this after the game, he's the only one doing it right now. Russell Westbrook is the only one on this team that's really, like, continuing to fight every second of the game, even when they're down by 30 in the fourth quarter. So, and Malone said, Malone was very candid in his post-game press conference. He's like, if we're going to continue to play like this, like, I don't even think we're a playoff team. He said that tonight. And he mentioned, he called out Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray specifically for leadership. He said Russell Westbrook can't be the only one talking and giving effort in games like this. It has to be our guys that have been here forever, in Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. He mentioned them specifically. So, yeah, it's there's an interesting dynamic going on with this Denver Nuggets team right now. Like, who is going to be the dogs in this lineup? Who's it going to be? I don't know. And I think Coach Malone is trying to figure that out as well, because the bench was awful again tonight, other than Russ, who was fantastic. Russ actually led the team in points with 27, but Julian Strawther, I mean, didn't do much of anything tonight. 1 of 4 shooting from the field, 4 points. Trey Alexander had 2 points. DJ, who did play about 14 minutes in place of Dario Saric tonight, did not score. Hunter Tyson in his 10 minutes had 5 points, and PJ Hall and Dario Saric got, cleanup minutes at the very end of the game. They did not score as well. So the bench unit is obviously struggling mightily, but it was very interesting to hear Coach Malone call out Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray specifically in the post-game press conference. That was very interesting because these are guys that have been here for nearly a decade now, and they've won a championship together. So this early on in the season, for Coach Malone to be questioning his team's effort and commitment in pretty much every area on the floor, that is a big concern of mine moving forward because we haven't really seen those two guys being called out for effort, intensity, leadership. I mean, Nikola Jokic, I don't think I've ever heard be called out for leadership. So that was very telling in the post-game press conference that I just got out of with head coach Michael Malone. All right, let's get to some of your comments here. Our guy Kev, hey DT, what's up, Kevin? Appreciate you listening, man. Kevin says the Nuggets have the case of the Mondays. Well, apparently the Avalanche do as well because they got absolutely crushed in Tampa tonight, 8-2. So both of the Ball Arena teams getting lambasted on this Monday, November 25th in the Mile High City. PC, hello PC, is Malone on the chopping block? No, we've talked about this a bunch. Okay, Daniel says this is on Malone and him only. Please explain. What specifically did you want to see Malone do differently tonight? What were the things that you didn't like that you saw from Coach Malone? Because that's something I don't understand. This was not on Malone tonight. The Nuggets were not executing on the defensive end at all, just player personnel wise. Malone is trying to mix up the second unit to get something going, and it's just simply not happening right now with the Nuggets. And I honestly, I really do think it's more of a personnel issue right now than a coaching issue with what's going on defensively. I just don't think they have the defenders, at least right now, to get the job done of what Malone's system on the defensive end is trying to do. All right, Kevin says, growing up here in Colorado, I really didn't, and being a Nuggets fan, I really didn't like this loss. Yeah, well, yes, that is, I don't think anybody here at Ball Arena like this loss, but I will say there was a large contingent of New York Knicks fans here tonight, and they were loud. In fact, if you can see behind me here, I'll try and show it this way. This section right over there, right behind the Knicks bench, there was a lot of New York fans, and they were loud. They were chanting OG, OG for the majority of the game because OG Anunoby was phenomenal tonight. There's no doubt about that. They were getting some cat chants going. And talk about a trade that over the offseason, I remember that when this trade broke, Karl Anthony Towns goes to New York, DiVincenzo and Julius Randle go to Minnesota. This was a trade where I was like, wow, the Knicks are kind of getting desperate to figure this thing out and try and win a title. I'll say this, Karl Anthony Towns never played that well against the Nuggets when he was with Minnesota. So credit to the Knicks, credit to head coach Tom Thibodeau, because he's got this team rolling right now. And Jalen Brunson, I mean, my goodness, that guy is ridiculous. He is a really good basketball player. And I was kind of thinking about this during the game. Jalen Brunson is playing right now the way that I think a lot of Nuggets fans, and myself included, were expecting Jamal Murray to be playing at this point in his career. And for whatever reason, Jamal has just descended while Jalen Brunson has ascended. But really, I mean, they have kind of similar styles of play. They're not the most athletic dudes on the court, but they can shoot the ball. They're really crafty inside, getting to the rim. But Jalen Brunson is just playing on another planet right now compared to Jamal Murray. I mean, the counterpart was absolutely obvious tonight between those two. The dichotomy of Jamal Murray and Jalen Brunson was very apparent in tonight's basketball game. So, that's something that we're going to have to keep an eye out for. And again, like, I didn't think Jamal had a bad game tonight. He played just under 31 minutes, scored 20 points, 6 of 13 shooting, His three ball is not falling. That's something that's really been an issue for Jamal this year, and that's one of his strengths is shooting the basketball, and that's where he's struggled the most. So if Jamal can get his shot to start falling, that's going to solve a lot of problems on the offensive end for the Nuggets. But right now, it's not. Luckily, Nikola Jokic this season is, I don't know if he still is, but before this game, he was leading, excuse me, the NBA in three-point shooting. So he's kind of picked up the slack there for the outside shooting for the Nuggets, and he's needed to because Jamal is just he just doesn't look right. And our guy Kevin says Jamal looks like he's hurt. Yeah, that's something I've said really since the end of last year's playoffs, Kevin, was I don't know what exactly is going on with Jamal Murray, but he just doesn't look right. I mean, seriously, go look at just like the playoff highlights from their championship season. I mean, that was 16 months ago or whatever it is. It's not that long ago. He looks like a completely different player. He looks out of shape, and I don't know if it's a combination of him having nagging injuries and being out of shape, or if he's just came into this season a little bit out of shape. He didn't look right in the Olympics with Team Canada, and he still doesn't look right this season. Now, I will say Jamal's first 3 or 4 games this year, he looked even worse than he does now. He looks like he's starting to play his way into game shape, but he's just not there yet. But we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of season left to go. Hopefully he can kind of play his way out of this funk or whatever it is that he's in. But look, here's the bottom line. This team has essentially, I know it's not technically true, but essentially they have 4 max players. Nikola, Jamal, Michael Porter Jr., and Aaron Gordon. MPJ, Jamal, and AG are all just sort of right under the max, but they're essentially right there. So as far as the salary cap goes, it's basically 4 max players. If all 4 of those guys aren't firing on all cylinders, it's going to make life really, really difficult on this team. I mean, that's just the God's honest truth about this Nuggets basketball team, specifically this year. In years prior, before the new CBA, came into law, if you will, for the NBA, the Nuggets had a little bit more flexibility as far as role players that they could bring in and really help produce, like Bruce Brown, like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. But they really don't have that option anymore. So if your 4 max players aren't firing on all cylinders, well, Julian Strawther's got to produce. Christian Brown's got to produce. Now, CB, you've heard me talk about Christian Brown this year. I think he's been phenomenal. He has been absolutely fantastic. And I thought, honestly, probably tonight was his least productive game of the season. But let's be honest, this game tonight was every Nuggets player's least productive game of the season. So this one, CB gets a pass for me. But guys like Hunter Tyson, guys like Dario Saric, guys like Julian Strawther, they need these guys to produce. And if they don't, this is the result you're going to get, a blowout loss to the New York Knicks at home. I mean, that really is the bottom line for this team right now. With the way this team is constructed, it's very top-heavy. They have to have guys like Julian, Hunter Tyson, these young guys, or the free agent acquisitions over the offseason, Dario Saric, cheaper players, money-wise, on their team have got to produce more than they are right now. And that's one of the biggest issues I'm seeing with this Nuggets squad. They're not getting the nearly enough production that they need from the non-max contract players on this team. And you pair that with the max contract players, other than Nikola Jokic, obviously, are not producing at the level this team needs them to be. Plain and simple. Michael Porter Jr., again, fantastic second quarter. He had 0 points in the first, 15 in the second. He was on fire in that second quarter. But again, the problem is he scored 15 points in the second quarter. He scored 3 points total in quarters 1, 3, and 4. Can't have that. I'm looking for more consistency out of Michael Porter Jr., out of Jamal Murray, and it's just not happening right now. Like, this is going to be a theme throughout the year. Until these guys can really find their consistent game, this might be a 6 to 8 to 10 seed somewhere in the playoffs. As of right now, I do think they're going to be able to turn it around. Anytime you have Nikola Jokic, I really do believe that, it's going to get better, and you always have a shot when you have the best player in the world. But right now, it's just, other than Joker and Christian Brown, the consistency isn't there. And we forget that Aaron Gordon is out, and Coach Malone did give somewhat of an update on AG before the game. His update was essentially that there is no timetable, and they're going to be very smart with a soft tissue injury to Aaron Gordon's calf. That's really what the update is. So, this is the world the Nuggets are living in right now. No Aaron Gordon, and you can feel his presence gone on the defensive end because they have no interior defense right now whatsoever. All right, let's get to some more comments here. Remember, feel free to leave your comments in, and I want to get you all involved on the post-game show. All right, let's see. Dante here, right? The guys have been here forever because everyone else are Booth's acquisitions. Well, yeah. I will say, Calvin Booth does get a lot of negativity, we'll call it, from Nuggets fans, and some of it is deserved. Some draft picks haven't hit. You have guys like Jalen Pickett who are ripping it up in the G League, but when they're here, they hardly ever play. But it was Calvin Booth's decision to draft Christian Brown. It was Calvin Booth's decision to bring in Bruce Brown and KCP, which helped him win a championship. And I understand that Tim Connolly was the one who drafted Joker and Jamal and MPJ and made the trade for Aaron Gordon. So there's negatives and positives to both tenures of the last two GMs for the Denver Nuggets. So, I mean, I get the criticisms of Calvin Booth, but I also think we need to point out the positive things he has done during his time here. Now, I will say the next challenge, or the next thing I'm looking for out of Calvin Booth is he really going to analyze this roster and make hard decisions on, like, realistically, what are we looking at? What is this team? Can this team win a championship as constituted? That's what I want to see really be answered from Calvin Booth. Again, there's still a long ways to go before he really needs to answer that question. But as it looks right now, this team does not look like they are legitimate championship contenders. And when you have Nikola Jokic, you need to do everything you possibly can to win titles with this dude. So we'll see. We'll see what Calvin Booth comes up with. All right, let's keep going through the comments here. All right, Daniel, you responded, and we'll read it. Malone looked in over his head on the sidelines. He looked like he knew his team quit on him. He looked like he was worried about his job. What is looking like worrying about your job look like? I don't know what that looks like, but I wouldn't say his team quit on him. I would say they didn't show fight or effort. I don't know if that's necessarily quitting, but like I said, and maybe it did look like that. But Coach Malone said in his post-game press conference that he called out Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray specifically for leadership, because he was asked about Russell Westbrook being a great leader on the floor, which he said he is, but it can't just be Russell Westbrook. That was the point that Coach Malone was making. It needs to be Jamal Murray, and it needs to be Nikola Jokic as well as Russell Westbrook. It can't just be Russell Westbrook. So I know Nikola Jokic is a Denver legend, but we need to call it like it is with Joker. Has he shown a lot of leadership on the floor this year? I mean, is he calling teammates out? I don't know. In the locker room, maybe he is. I haven't heard anything about that. It doesn't look like there's a lot of conversations going on the bench. In fact, I was kind of looking at the Nuggets bench tonight in that fourth quarter. Everybody just kind of sitting there, looking pretty relaxed, pretty cool. Maybe that's what Coach Malone is talking about. So, again, I think it's really easy and honestly kind of lazy to just blame the head coach if things aren't going well. I'm not saying that's always wrong, and there certainly are times where the head coach makes mistakes, and you are absolutely right in calling those out. but I think it's kind of lazy and wrong to just always blame when a team's struggling, blame it on the head coach. There is a lot more going on than just that. So, I mean, Jamal Murray, he's got to play better, plain and simple. Michael Porter Jr., got to be more consistent. He's had really good stretches this year. He's got to figure out a way to string those together, not only from quarter to quarter, half to half, but game to game, week to week. That's what this team needs right now from their stars. They need, other than Joker, because he's been phenomenal, they need their stars to be better, plain and simple. So, I don't think this one's on Malone. Great observation about Murray and Brunson. Yeah, if you missed it earlier, I had said that I was thinking during the game watching Jalen Brunson. It's like, wow, watching Jalen Brunson, like this is what Jamal Murray should be right now, is Jalen Brunson. That's who Jamal Murray looked like for, in the bubble before he tore his ACL and when he came back in that playoff run that led to a Nuggets championship. That's what Jamal Murray was playing like. He was playing like Jalen Brunson was. But the problem is, for whatever reason, whatever's going on with Jamal Murray, it's absolutely gone downhill. Let's see here. Paulie B says Zeke Naji looks like a worm ate his brain. Okay. Yeah, Zeke did get some run at the end of this game. He blew a wide open layup and then missed a three, and then he was out of there. But look, I know the Nuggets are trying to search for solutions, especially at the backup five. And I know Zeke Naji has gotten a decently fair shake in his time with the Nuggets, but I'm surprised that Malone's not trying him a little bit more just because Dario Saric has been awful. And DeAndre Jordan has been DeAndre Jordan, a 37-year-old, 38-year-old, however old he is, DeAndre Jordan. He is who he is. Zeke Naji is at least a guy that you would hope has some sort of upside when he comes in, and maybe we can see flashes of him developing into a somewhat competent NBA player. But I just don't see that happening from Zeke. So that's really the position that, again, I've talked about this a bunch, but I keep bringing it up because it's so true. The backup five has been an issue for years and years and years with this team. All right, I think we have DMAC on. I can hear him, but I don't see him. DMAC, do you have me? All right, we're having the Wi-Fi here at Ball Arena is super slow. So let's see if we can get DMAC connected here. DMAC, are you there? Hello, DMAC. DMAC's frozen here. Hey, DMAC, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hey. Can you hear me, DMAC? All right, DMAC's having some connection issues here. We'll try and get him on here in just a second. But yeah, going back to the backup big again. This is something where Calvin Booth is really going to have to try and figure out what's going on there and look around the league to see what other options there are. We'll try DMAC here one more time, see if we can get him on. DMAC, do you have me?
Dan, I don't know if you can hear me.
I got you.
But I cannot hear you, unfortunately. Just
okay.
Technical issues. So I'll just talk. And hopefully if you can hear me. If you can't hear me, just take me out of here. But I'll just let you know what's going on. Michael Malone said, F that. We're not going to flush it. And was angry about it. So they're going to talk about it. They're not going to flush it. It's an incredibly different response than the Avalanche. They got their butts kicked too. I guess, Dan, according to Jamal Murray, some of the LA guys did not actually come home with the team. They stayed in LA and I guess got home on their own. Michael Malone said people have to be vocal aside from Russell Westbrook. And then he called out Jamal and even Nikola Jokic needing to be more vocal. So this is the worst, the most points allowed, I believe, since 1990-91. I mean, it was a total embarrassment. Jamal Murray said, we got punched in the face and didn't respond. And again, I apologize because I just can't hear you for technical difficulties. If you can hear me, that's cool. You see something where you had a good game in LA, but it was sandwiched between two awful efforts. And, it's Michael Malone saying somebody's got to step up besides Russell Westbrook. So ugly ugly, ugly, ugly game. Malone questioning efforts, says they'll talk about it, they'll watch film on it. Really questioning whether or not this team has the heart tonight, questioning whether this team has the heart to even make the playoffs. And it's an emotional loss, obviously, and I think this is clearly a playoff team. But that was the vibe from Malone. Again, I apologize. Technical difficulties on my part because I can't hear you. So I'll sign off from there, and I just want to give you a quick report from inside the locker room media area. So there you go, man. And we're waiting for Nicola. And if you're still on after Nicola talks, I'll hop back on and maybe we can have some better technical setup. And I apologize for that, but hopefully you heard me, and talk to you later.
All right, there he goes, D-Mac. Yeah, I could hear him. We're working on getting our Wi-Fi fixed here at Ball Arena, so we don't have so many technical issues. The Wi-Fi is as bad as the Nuggets played tonight. I'll just say that. But yeah, I mean, D-Mac just kind of relayed everything I had brought up earlier. I try to take Coach Malone's post-game pressers after losses like this with a little bit of grain of salt because he's an emotional guy. There's no doubt about that. He's a fiery guy, ultra competitive coach. And sometimes that's how it goes. I mean, the press conference after the loss to the Timberwolves last year was something to watch as far as Coach Malone being pissed off about a loss. It wasn't that bad tonight, but I'll tell you what, he came in there and he was steaming mad, and rightfully so. I mean, look, I don't mind that from Michael Malone at all. Like, I'd rather have that type of head coach than a head coach that's just like really nonchalant. We got our asses kicked, throw it in the trash, we'll move on. No, I want the coach that's pissed off. So it is what it is. Now the question becomes like, how effective is that with his players? I think that's really what we will glean from this, because Malone has a propensity to call his team out a lot for being soft. There's no doubt about that. And the conversation over the years has been, how many times can you do that in a season for it to still be effective? Like, how many times can you do that to where it just starts falling on deaf ears? I don't know. I mean, that's a question I'd have to ask the players. But they know. I mean, this team knows that they got their asses kicked tonight. They know their head coach is pissed off. What I hope is that his players are just as pissed as he is. Like, that's what you want to see. And that's, again, what I was talking about. I'm pointing to the Nuggets bench right there if you can't see me. I don't think it's a huge deal, but it's just something that irked me a little bit during the game. I'm sitting there watching the bench during the fourth quarter, and, I mean, literally everybody's just kind of, arms crossed, looking around, no energy on the bench tonight. And I think that, Coach Malone might have noticed that as well, because, again, as D-Mac just mentioned, and I had said to start the show, Coach Malone called this team out, specifically two players, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, for leadership. That's not a good sign, folks. Hopefully they get the message. I promise you he will relay that to them in the locker room. But that's going to be something that I'll be watching for in the Nuggets next game, is just the body language of Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. Like, did they get the message from their head coach that he expects more out of them leadership-wise? And, it's coming up in 2 nights from now. They're traveling to Utah to take on the Jazz, and then they have Thursday, Friday, and Saturday off. Then they're back at it on the road in LA against the Clippers, and then they're back home on December 3rd against the Golden State Warriors. So not an easy 3-game stretch here. Obviously, Utah is not great, but that has been a house of horrors for the Nuggets over the past 25, 30 years or whatever it is, going to Utah. I don't care how down they are this season. That's a tough place to play for whatever reason. When the Nuggets go to the Salt Lake City, it's a very difficult environment for them to get wins in. I believe they got 1 win there last year, and it was their first game in like 15 tries where they had gotten a win in Utah. I think the 7 freaking dudes that from like 4 or 5 years ago was the last time they had won in Utah until last year. So that's not going to be an easy game. The Clippers, not going to be an easy game as well. That's on the road. And then you come home and you play the Golden State Warriors, who last time I checked were leading or close to leading the Western Conference. I'll pull up the standings here real quick and see where the Warriors are at. Yeah, they're currently tied with the Thunder with a 12-4 record, leading the Western Conference. So that's what I'm going to be looking for. How does this team respond? I always look at the true test of a character of a team. How do you respond after a game like this? That's what I'm looking for. If they come out in Utah and play really well, that's going to tell me a lot about this team, or vice versa. If they don't play well, it's going to tell you a lot about this team too. So we'll see. Tough loss here tonight at Ball Arena for the Nuggets. Again, they fall to the New York Knicks here at home, where they fall 5-4 at Ball Arena. That's going to do it for the post-game show tonight. My name is Dan Tanner here live at Ball Arena. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to DMAC for hopping on. Thank you for everybody contributing to the show. And we will be back on Wednesday for the Nuggets matchup against the Utah Jazz. Have a good night, everybody.